Yeah, all right, well, we'll get started. I know almost everyone here, but for those I don't know, hi, I'm Amanda. I'm a voice teacher, and most of you guys are my singing students. And we work in lessons, we work a lot on not only vocal technique, but the emotional components of being a performer. Because a lot comes up emotionally as a performer, and nerves and confidence are just kind of the tip of the iceberg. And so I was so excited when I met Alyssa. So I'll go ahead and introduce her because she is not only a singer and has a background in music and performing, but has a background in mental health. So she has a master's degree in counseling and now coaches people and uses her background in counseling and her experience as a performer to coach people through all the various things that come up emotionally as a performer and help them work through them. So just like voice lessons, it's very individualized. I think everybody has their own set of things that they move through emotionally. But there are things that she notices that help many. So she has prepared kind of some information for us and some exercises for us that she finds helps many of her clients. So I'm so happy she's here. She's a delight and has great info, and I will just let her take it away.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And thank you all for being here. I see just one or two familiar faces. So a lot of you, this is the first time we're meeting. So very nice to meet you. And I just appreciate you taking the time on your Sunday afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in the world. And yes, Amanda, thank you so much for welcoming me to your studio and allowing me to have some space to talk about, just like you said, all of the emotional, mental, physical things that come along with being vulnerable when we put ourselves out there to perform. So that was a lovely introduction. I feel like you covered a lot of the things I was going to say just off the bat. But like Amanda said, I am a performer myself. I am located in Charlotte, North Carolina, like Amanda. Heard something. Okay, we're all good. So I have been performing since I was really young. And then when I got to high school, college age, I really noticed another passion of mine, which was mental health and learning about psychology, learning about counseling. So I got my bachelor's degree in psychology. I then went on to get my master's in counseling. I became licensed as a therapist, and I worked for a little while in the space of clinical therapy and also school counseling. So what I would call myself is a counselor turned coach. So the turned coach part for me happened once I was really into my work, into my practice, and I noticed just this burning desire to get back into the performing space. I'm a really big believer that if you have an artist inside you, which I believe all of us here probably do, that it's really hard to ignore that. So I felt so lucky that I was able to create my company, which I call Honeybee Coaching, and just create a space for me to combine those two passions to talk about performing, which I love to do, and I connect very strongly and deeply with other people who have that passion as well, and then connect that to mental health and to working through all of those things that come up for us in this craft, all of those performance jitters, audition anxiety, stage fright, all the fun things. So I have been really blessed to use my experience in the mental health world and to use that education and expertise just to provide some tips to other performers, also using some of my past experiences. So I think something that is important for me in my work is to provide a service that I kind of wish I had when I was younger. And as I was getting to know myself as a performer, who I am as a person on stage and off stage. So like Amanda said, I typically do work one-on-one with people. There is no one size fit all method or technique for everybody, but I do see a lot of themes. So in our work today as a group, I figured I could go through just a little bit of a sampler of different types of techniques that might help in all different areas, whether you might feel some nerves before an audition or when you're on stage singing. Sometimes nerves can even come up in lessons. I know there's a lot of comparison in this industry, so a lot of things that really just holistically have a lot to do with our mental and emotional health. So I can jump into some content and some ideas that I brought with me, but I would like to say before that, I'm not a person who loves to just hear myself talk. So I would love for this to feel conversational. If anybody wants to jump in at any point with questions, comments, feel free to unmute yourself or use the hand raising feature. I would love to hear from you just as much as you can hear from me today. So, where can I begin? I was also just talking to Amanda about maybe diving into some more sciencey things. I do pull a bit from my background and learning about counseling and the brain, just how what we're feeling inside our bodies can really impact how we're thinking about our performances, also even vocally. And that's where Amanda could also probably jump in with more of the vocal side of things. But I do know quite a bit about how what we're thinking and what we're feeling affects all of these physical manifestations in our bodies. So I'm sure we're all here because we've experienced some of these things, like those jitters, anxiety, and that can look so different in all different people. For me, I get, knots in my stomach, my heart starts pounding. I've heard from lots of clients that I work with many other things, maybe some shaking. Sometimes people get very cold, very hot. It can look all different ways. And to a certain extent, these nervous jitters, this anxiety can feel manageable. And sometimes it can even feel a little bit helpful. It shows us that we care about what we're doing, can motivate us to try really hard. It can sometimes be viewed as more excitement over nerves. But then there's the other side of the coin where sometimes it can feel quite debilitating and it can feel like it's getting in the way of everything that we've worked super hard for. And it's just very, very hard to push through. So that's where I come in, and I feel like we're learning some techniques and exercises to work through or to work with your nerves can make all the difference. So before I get into specific methods or techniques, I think that right there is basically the foundation of my coaching work, is just the working through your nerves as opposed to getting rid of them or working against them. So the opposite of that would be, I don't know if you've ever had an experience where you share something with someone about how you're feeling and they fire back with, oh, don't be nervous, or just don't be scared, don't be sad. And it's kind of like, okay, thanks, I'm cured, right? And people typically have the best intentions when they say that, but it doesn't always help. And that's because we can't just stop thinking about something. As humans, it's pretty much impossible to make yourself stop thinking of something. So if I were to say to all of you, Brian, Kate, Peter, Olivia, Reagan, Carissa, Megan, if I were to say, whatever you do right now, do not think of a pink elephant. Just don't think of it, okay? Don't think of a pink elephant. I can probably guess that what you're all thinking about right now is a pink elephant, right? So that's the same when it comes to feeling our nerves. If somebody, and it's definitely not with ill intent, but if someone were to say, don't be nervous, or, hey, you have nothing to be nervous about, not only does it not help, it can also just add things like shame, frustration to the already large amount of nerves that we're feeling. You can feel, oh, is there something wrong with me for feeling this way? Why can't I stop feeling this way? And that leads into this big cycle. So something that really fuels the foundation of my work when I'm talking about this with performers is just the idea of mindfulness and acceptance. So a lot of these techniques that we can all work through together tonight, if you're willing to try some things, is really surrounded by the belief that all feelings are okay and we all have all these feelings. So as performers, nerves are normal. It's not something that means that it's a thing that's wrong with you, something that you need to get rid of, but rather something that you can notice and accept and work through that, even sometimes noticing how it can help you. So going back to talking about things that we can't do, we can't stop thinking about something. So what can we do? That's where I think would be helpful for us to spend some time. So everybody, like I was saying before, we all have different tells of what anxiety feels like for us. And so maybe just think to yourself for a second what you notice If you can put yourself in your shoes of stepping up on the stage right before you start singing or before an audition, if that's something that you do in your performing work, what does that feel like for you? Like I said, for me, I typically go to my stomach. I get these huge knots in my stomach. Sometimes if it's really intense, feel like I'm going to be sick, but that's just how I know personally that my anxiety is creeping up. So if you can think about that for yourself, what that looks like for you, that is a good moment to practice a little bit of acceptance, you can think of it as a scientific observation. So rather than having any kind of judgment, like, oh, why am I feeling nervous? Things like that, just kind of noticing, okay, there's my friend anxiety coming back. I'm familiar with you. I know you like to come and go. I also know that this feeling isn't permanent. This is temporary. So first and foremost, when we are able to notice and accept these feelings as they come and go, it typically removes a lot of that judgment around it. And then coincidingly, it removes some of its power over you. So while this is the basic foundation of a lot of my work, there are so many different exercises and techniques, like Amanda was saying. That's typically why I will work one-on-one. But it's great also to just expose yourself to a variety of different things through trial and error. That is a lot of what I do in my sessions. I have a huge toolbox of skills and techniques that I can pull from and go through that trial and error process with the performers I work with. And I always tell people sometimes it's not going to be your thing, and that's totally fine. And then other times it's good to notice if maybe it's just a place of I can practice a little bit more. I hear all the time, and I have been in this spot too, where it's like mindfulness doesn't work for me. My brain is too busy. I can't meditate. I hear all of these things constantly. And it might be the case that some people don't gravitate towards that type of skill, but also it's something that takes a lot of work, a lot of practice, and a lot of going through what I just spoke about with the accepting. If we feel like we're trying to be mindful and quiet our brains for a little bit, but we're noticing all of these thoughts that come up, it's okay. And just tell yourself, all right, I'm noticing this. I will let it pass. I will keep on trying rather than letting yourself shut down and kind of write off mindfulness, meditation as not my thing. So the only thing that I will ask of you all today is that you just keep an open mind. If I try something that is familiar for you, just maybe be open to trying again and seeing if it feels similar or different this time, or if it's something that seems a little bit out of your comfort zone, just giving it your best shot, and you could be surprised by how you react to certain things. So yes, that's all. I'm glad we circled back, and I hope I didn't miss anything else.
Yeah, your video is clear. Your video and sound are clear for me now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
So now we can get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty about some of the different techniques that I work through with people that can be used really in so many different ways. And one of my favorite parts about my coaching work in relation to my previous work as a counselor is that I can see how a lot of the skills that I work on with performers can be used and transferable to just everyday life. Because nerves, at least for me, I tend to be on the anxious side of the scale. I feel nerves always. It doesn't matter if it's with being on stage or if it's with social situations. All of these techniques can be used in a wide variety of situations. So the way that I think about the tools that I pull from, I have a few different categories. So I would say you have your grounding strategies, where you can practice physically centering yourself in the present moment, utilizing your senses. You have your emotional awareness strategies, where you can identify and practice expressing how you're feeling. You have your emotional release strategies, where you can release the built up tension and pressure of overwhelming emotions. And then you have your cognitive strategies, where you can practice noticing and challenging any unhelpful thoughts. So my goal for the next little bit of our time is maybe just to walk through a few strategies that touch on some of these different categories. So, and also, like I said before, if I'm going too fast or if you have any questions, feel free to unmute or just let me know. But I think now I might get a little bit sciencey. So starting with the grounding exercises, as I dive into that, I think it might be a good time to touch on just some of the brain science perspective on things. And I'm so glad Amanda asked me that earlier. I think it can be really helpful and kind of comforting almost to understand what's going on inside our bodies when we're getting these butterflies in our stomachs, when our heart's racing. It just helps us to remember that it's all very human and very normal, and it's hardwired into our bodies as human beings. So, a little quick deep dive into the science behind things. The system in our bodies that's responsible for nervousness, anxiety, all of that is the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system is responsible for all the processes that we don't necessarily have to think about in order for them to function. So that's things like your heart beating, your blood pressure, breathing, digestion, all of that. And this system is broken down into two parts. So you have your sympathetic nervous system and you have your parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is probably what we've all heard referred to as the fight or flight. So when something happens that triggers your alarm system, whether you feel like there is a threat to your safety, things like that, that just blasts the alarm from the sympathetic nervous system. You either can go into flight mode or fight. We also have added a couple more F's to this. You have your freeze and you have your fawn. So these are all the different ways that we can react when we feel like there is a threat. And then on the other end of that is your parasympathetic nervous system, which regulates how your body is responding in times of rest. So I've heard this one to go along with the rhyming of the fight or flight. The parasympathetic is the rest and digest. So how you kind of go back to your baseline level after you feel like the thing that was threatening your safety is removed, and you can sort of return to that baseline level of calmness. So the parasympathetic nervous system is where I feel it's super helpful to learn about what exactly that looks like, because that's sort of the goal for us, especially, you know, these things are hardwired from a time where there were some real threats to our safety. You know, there might have been a bear. So yes, of course, you're going to have to run, you're going to have to fight. But now when our bodies are triggering this alarm, it can be things like an audition where, you know, logically we understand that it's not a life or death situation, but our body doesn't understand that. So it can absolutely feel like it is life or death, like things are going to be shutting down inside your body. So knowing that, yeah, of course you feel that way. That's a lot of stuff that's going on. Your body is literally trying to help you survive. But just understanding how we go from that alarm system back to our baseline level of calmness through the parasympathetic nervous system can be really helpful. So I would love to share, if you guys can bear with a little bit more of this nerdy stuff for a minute, something that I learned, it's not thumbs up, something that I learned when I was in grad school that I had never heard of. And from what I hear from people I work with, it's not super common knowledge, but it is so important, is about something called the vagus nerve. This is vagus, vagus nerve. So in the parasympathetic nervous system, it connects to 4 out of the 12 cranial nerves that we have. And the fourth one, and the longest one by far, is the vagus nerve. And this is basically the clearest representation of what we would call the mind-body connection. So the vagus nerve starts up in your brain. It wanders down through your throat, down through your abdomen, and it connects to almost all of your major organs. And so this is something that if we are triggered into that fight or flight, it can have very serious effects on all parts of your body, but definitely connecting up to your brain, making you feel anxious. You know, all the negative self-talk, things like that are way more heightened when you're in that state. So like I said, it wanders down throughout your body. The root word vagus is from the root vega, which means to wander. So this is the largest nerve, and it is it's crucial to the parasympathetic nervous system. So it is really helpful for things, particularly talking to you all as singers. It is super important for helping things like lung capacity, swallowing, heart rate, things that can very clearly impact singing performance. So ideally, the vagus nerve should become stimulated on its own, and that's its typical function. It will automatically calm your nervous system down. However, like I was saying, if you're in a high stress situation like an audition or a performance, your body might not feel like it is ready to calm yourself down automatically. You might still be perceiving a threat or a danger, and your vagus nerve might not be automatically stimulated. So here's where the fun trick comes in, where we can actually manually trigger our vagus nerve. It's kind of like pushing the on button for your body to begin its process of calming down. So what I would like to do is teach quickly just 2 ways that you can stimulate your vagus nerve wherever you are. And we can, if we have the resources, we can try it together now, or this is something you can just keep in mind. And next time you notice you're a little bit heightened emotionally, try it out and see what it's like. So the first one, which I think is also great, knowing that this is a voice studio, is humming. So humming is a really good way to stimulate your vagus nerve. Like I said, it starts up in your brain, but it goes down through your neck, really is primarily in the chest cavity and down to your abdomen. So when we make a low resonant humming sound, it vibrates the back of our throat, and the vagus nerve kind of gets a nice massage. It helps to vibrate and stimulate the vagus nerve, which will automatically start that process of helping you relax. And it's also a double whammy for singers because you have a good warm up with it too. So I don't know if anyone is willing to maybe unmute with me. We can all hum together, just a low humming sound. I can start if anyone wants to join in, and just notice when we do that, if you can even use your hands to give your throat a little massage. Okay, ready? All right. Well, thank you guys for doing that. I will say, out of all of us, I'm probably in the most heightened nervousness right now, but I could feel just from my personal experience that helped a little bit. It's a good way to just start the process of that mind-body connection. So this is a good example of a grounding exercise too. So it makes us feel more connected to the present moment, more present in our bodies, and doesn't hurt to just warm up a little bit too, to do a little bit of humming. So the next way that you can stimulate the vagus nerve is actually cold exposure. So exposing yourself to something cold, while that doesn't sound especially pleasant, can help stimulate the vagus nerve. So by introducing yourself to coldness, you are activating something called the cholinergic neurons. And these are the neurons in the vagus pathway that tell our body to lower our heart rate. So ways that you can do this are, if you're able to, take a cold shower before you do something that you're anticipating some anxiety around. You can dip your face into ice water. This is called the diving reflex. You can hold ice cubes in your hand, put a wet washcloth on your face. I will say, for me, when I get nervous, my hands turn ice cold. So something that I've done right before an audition, if I'm feeling particularly jittery, is I'll just take my hands and put it on my face, put it on my chest, my neck. And that's a good way. When I first learned about it, it sounded like, it just shocks your system. And that's definitely part of it too. But internally, I know that this is stimulating that vagus nerve. So if you want to hum and do something cold at the same time, that's a double way to stimulate that vagus nerve. And it starts physically calming down all of the internal parts of your body, which then will go back up to your brain and help you start feeling calmer. So circling back to where I started before all of that with grounding, doing that related to your vagus nerve and just understanding the parasympathetic nervous system is a really good way to practice grounding as you use your senses to center yourself in the present moment. I do have another favorite grounding exercise that I'd love to walk you all through. And this one's called the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method. So this takes us through all of our 5 senses to feel fully grounded in your space. And this is one that you may have heard before, but I would invite you to still try it out and just consider this a good practice. And if you haven't heard it before, I'm very excited to share. This is one that I typically pull from first wherever I am. If I'm especially in a new environment where there's a lot of stimulation, it helps me just focus and feel a little bit more safe and comfortable in my space. So like Amanda said earlier, if you would feel more comfortable turning off your camera, you're more than welcome to. I'll keep mine on, and this is just something we can do silently in our own space, but I will walk us through it. It's quick and it's easy, but we will start with number 5. So with 5 in your own time, just look around your space and try to acknowledge 5 things you can see. And no need to say it out loud unless you want to. Just silently acknowledge 5 things and really pay attention to what they look like, what the color is, what the size is. It can be anything small, large. It could be a pen, glass of water, a picture on your wall. I know, Kate, you're in a car. You can look out the window. Just take a moment to notice the 5 things. Looks like people are wrapping up. So next, you can move on to number 4, which is 4 things you can touch. So no need to get up unless you'd like to. You can feel just whatever is close to you. You can touch your hands, your hair. You can do some very literal grounding and feel the ground beneath your feet. Think about what the seat or bed or wherever you're sitting feels like. Think about your clothing, your shirt on your shoulders, what that feels like. Are things soft or rough? Are things hot or cold? Okay, and then next, for number 3, you're going to notice 3 things you can hear. It starts to get a little bit trickier when we go down towards 1, but maybe you hear a muffled noise outside of the room you're in, a clock ticking if it's pretty quiet, a dog barking, you can hear me talking. Okay, and then once you've noticed 3 things you can hear, it's going to continue to get more challenging. Think about 2 things you can smell. So this one gets a bit more subtle, but you can think about what you might smell in your space, whether you smell the air around you, maybe a perfume or a lotion, the smell of your own clothing or your hair. Yeah, I do that all the time. I'll just pick up my hair. And then the last one is the trickiest, but acknowledge 1 thing that you can taste. And people usually are looking around for like something that they can put in their mouth. I would challenge you to be really mindful and just think about what your mouth tastes like, whether that's like leftover lunch or snack. It could have been coffee you drank hours ago. Or if you do have something on you, I just have water. You can take a sip of something, think about what you can taste. And then I like to end the exercise with just 1 deep breath to kind of wrap it up. And then that's a really quick way to just get a little bit grounded in your space. I typically will do this one if I'm in a new room. So if I'm I do a lot of musical theater. So if I'm in a new space right before an audition, somewhere I've never been, the chairs are new for me, the whole room is different, I'll just quietly to myself, maybe I won't do that. It's just a little more subtle, but just use all my senses to ground myself a little bit more before I'm asked to do something kind of scary. So yes, that is one example of grounding. That one, again, is called the 5-4-3-2-1 method. So I have one more exercise that we can all walk through together. And then after that, I am trying to be mindful of our time. I would love to spend some time answering any questions you have. But this last one that I have is one that kind of encompasses those other categories I was talking about. So this is more of the emotional awareness and emotional release type of coping skill. So this exercise is called a progressive muscle relaxation. And as I walk you through this technique, again, if you would prefer to turn off your camera, you're more than welcome to. This one, I'll invite you to close your eyes. So if anyone would prefer to just not worry about being on camera, that's totally okay. And so as I walk through this technique, we're going to practice just being mindful and curious about how we're feeling, noticing if we're holding any tension anywhere in our bodies, and then releasing that tension. So if you're ready to try something new, I can go ahead and get started. Okay. So for this progressive muscle relaxation, you can either stay seated where you are, or you can lay down if that feels more comfortable for you. Just make sure that you are comfortable. You can choose to let your hands rest loosely in your lap. You can have them by your side. And like I said, you can choose to close your eyes if you'd like, or you can just pick a spot, look somewhere and soften your gaze. So let's just start by becoming aware of our breathing. Notice how naturally you're choosing to breathe, whether it's shallow, if you're breathing deeply. And then just take one long breath altogether in through your nose. Notice how it's going all the way down into your stomach. Just hold the breath for a moment and then exhale through your mouth. Then take another breath in through your nose. Fill your lungs up completely. Hold it for a moment. Then release the breath through your mouth. Now you can let your breathing rhythm return to how you normally would breathe and just feel the tension in your body slowly begin to loosen. So during this progressive muscle relaxation, I will ask you to tense various muscles in your body, but please do this without straining. You don't need to exert yourself. Just contract each muscle firmly but gently as you breathe in. And if you feel uncomfortable at any time, you can just stop that and you can relax, just breathe normally. Okay, so let's start by bringing your awareness to your feet and your toes. As you breathe in deeply through your nose, gradually curl your toes down and tense the muscles in the soles of your feet. Hold your breath for just a few seconds. And then as you breathe out, release the muscles in your feet. You can feel the tension in your feet wash away as you exhale. And notice how your feet feel different when they were tensed now that they do when they're relaxed. Next, we're going to bring your awareness slightly higher to your lower legs, to your calf muscles. So as you draw in a nice deep breath, tighten your calf muscles. Hold that for just a moment. And then let those muscles go limp as you exhale. Feel your muscles relax and feel the tension washing away with your out breath. In a moment, we're going to tense the muscles in the front of your thighs. So it looks like everybody is seated. So you can do this by pushing your heels down onto the floor. If you were choosing to lay down, you can do this by straightening your legs. So when you're ready, just focusing on your thighs, take a deep breath in and tense the muscles in your thighs. Hold for just a moment and then release everything. As you do this, the blood flow will increase to your muscles. You might even notice a tingling, warm sensation. Just notice whatever you're feeling and notice that relaxing feeling in your thighs. Next, we're going to bring awareness to your stomach. So draw in a nice deep breath and tighten your stomach muscles. I like to imagine you're trying to touch your belly button to your spine. Just hold that there for a moment. Notice what that feels like. And then release your breath and let your muscles relax. Notice that sensation of relief that comes from letting go. Next, we're going to bring awareness to the muscles in your back. So as you slowly breathe in, arch your back slightly and tighten these muscles. Hold for a moment, then release your breath and let your muscles relax. Now give your attention to your shoulder muscles and the muscles in your neck. As you slowly draw in a nice deep breath, pull your shoulders up towards your ears and squeeze these muscles. Now breathe out completely and allow your muscles to go loose and limp. You can drop them down. Just feel the tension subside as you relax and breathe out. You can feel the heaviness in your body now. Feel yourself becoming heavier as you become more deeply relaxed. Now it's time to let go of all the tension in your arms and your hands. So as you take your next breath in, tightly clench your fists and tighten the muscles in your arms. Hold for a few seconds, and then release. You might notice some buzzing or throbbing feelings. Just acknowledge those. I'm going to take just a couple of breaths here and we're almost done. So next, we're going to tighten the muscles in your face by squeezing your eyes shut and clenching your lips together. As you do, breathe in fully. Hold it and then breathe out and relax all your facial muscles. You can feel your face softening. And then finally, bring some awareness to the muscles in your jaw. Take a deep breath in, then open your mouth as wide as you can without feeling strain. You can feel your jaw muscles stretching and tightening. Now exhale and allow your mouth to gently close. Now just take a few more moments to breathe in and out deeply. You can use some of that mindfulness and grounding to listen to the sound of your breath. You can feel how your belly rises and falls as you're breathing. And just notice that feeling of full body relaxation now that you're not tightening any of your muscles. You can take as much time as you need until you are ready to rejoin by sitting up and opening your eyes. Looks like everybody has come back. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing that one. actually would love to hear any comments or feedback on what that was like for you. And I will just say that's pretty much the end of my my exercises that I had lined up. So if we want to just open it up and maybe talk about what that was like, I'd love to hear any questions as well.
Right. Oh my gosh, Alyssa, I
Hey.
have like 2 pages of notes here. I was just frantically writing things down. What incredible information you have. I thank you so much, especially I really loved the science stuff because a lot of the stuff I'm familiar with, but your kind of deep dive into it and your expertise on the details of it, I so appreciate it. And I love that you covered so many different things, the mental stuff, the physical stuff. And I think a lot of us feel nervous in more situations than just performing. And this stuff could be helpful. This information and these exercises could be helpful in a lot of different places. So thank you so much. It's
Thank you
incredible.
so
Yeah.
much.
Just applause from
Everybody
me.
too. And I loved your thoughtful questions and just thank you all so much for the chance to connect with you. I think Zoom is probably the best invention that, well, definitely that came out of the pandemic. So we
Yeah.
can connect all
Agreed.
over the place. Thank you
Agreed.
so much, Amanda.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we sign off of here, Alyssa is on Instagram and Facebook. And what are do you have other social media handles?
If you don't mind me screen sharing,
Yeah, yeah,
really,
please do screen share. I might have to, Alyssa is on a bunch of social media things, probably more than me because she's, like cooler. So she posts, I do follow her and she posts great, really inspirational content that I've already found helpful. So if if you like this kind of stuff and you think it'd be helpful, I recommend following her on whatever outlets you do. You can take a screenshot of this as soon as I figure out how to let you share it. Also, she does private coachings, as she mentioned. So if there's something that you want to work through one-on-one, go ahead and reach out to her via email or social media. Is there a best way, Alyssa?
either way. So yes, I do. And if we can't figure out screen sharing, I will send this to Amanda and she can give you my information, but it's always a variation of honeybee coaching. So I'm on, yeah, Instagram, TikTok. You can email me and I have a website with a contact information page too. But yeah, I'm sure
Awesome.
Amanda can get us connected. I would love to work with any of you, or just if you have any specific follow-up questions, can chat through email or whatever works best.
Awesome. Thank you. That's so generous of you. And I just changed the setting. So you should be able to share it now. See if you can share that screen.
Yes. Okay. There it is.
All right. Thanks, guys, for being here. Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your sharing. This was really, really cool. And I can feel, I'm like, bye. I just feel so relaxed.
Take a nap. I
Have a
wish
good
I
night,
was in a
everybody.
hot tub.
Yeah, that's right. This is the perfect place to do this in a hot tub. All right, everybody. Good night.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much. Good
Alyssa.
night,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks, Amanda. Bye-bye.
Bye.